Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Miami Hurricanes now. I um I like that they went out and got Carson Beck. I think he's a good addition to the team. He's not what Cam Ward was, but he's a really good passer. But then I looked at what he did last year. He had a lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that hurt his team with Georgia. So this is what I came up with. Start the season off against Notre Dame at home. It's a rivalry game. It's a winnable game, but I think they lose that game. I think Notre Dame's just too tough along the lines of scrimmage. I think that until I see Miami's defense take a big step forward, I'm not going to buy into it. I think it'll be better than last year, and last year's was just a joke. But I still don't think that Miami's going to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame's running game is really strong. Their offensive line is big and physical. Last year it was a really good offensive line, but it was a young offensive line. It's going to be a little bit older, so it should play better. Miami, and again, Carson Beck, when I talk about the turnovers, that's not just something that happens in 1 year. It's going to probably keep happening, especially with a lesser caliber. In my opinion, I don't think he's as good of a coach as Kirby Smart with Mario Cristobal. So with that being said, I have Miami dropping that first game. Now, it's possible because Miami does have good receivers. And if Miami can get that defense to get going from day one, I can see a scenario where they knock off Notre Dame and start off with a big win, but I highly doubt it. Bethune-Cookman and South Florida, those are two easy wins for Miami. And then they host Florida. Last year, I remember what they did to Florida. I know what you guys did to them last year. It was a blowout win. Very impressive victory to kickstart your season to a 10-win season. However, Florida has gotten a lot. They got a lot better as the season went on. The defense stepped up and played better, forced takeaways, got sacks on the quarterback. Offensively, with DJ Lagway playing, it got better. The running game got going. Things just started to look a lot better for Florida. It really did. They finished 8-5. They won their last 4 straight games. They knocked off a ranked LSU team at home, knocked off a top 10 Ole Miss team, kept them out the playoffs, beat Florida State, their rival. And then they capped off their season with a Gasparilla Bowl win over who was it that they beat? I think it was Memphis, Tulane, whoever it was. They beat some other school, but they won. And that's 4 games in a row. And I think Florida will beat Miami this time. And again, Carson Beck, a lot of why Georgia struggled last year was because of Carson Beck. He threw interceptions. He had overthrown passes. Just did not play very good in that game. Now, granted, I think Miami's offensive line situation is better than what Georgia's was for them, but still, just lack of good decision making, And again, this is a game I don't think Florida's going to dominate by any means. I think this game will be decided by a touchdown or less, and I don't think this is going to be a blowout. This will be a very close, competitive game, but I got to give the nod to Florida in this one. Again, Florida progressed so much to the point where I think there's nowhere else to go for Florida but the top. To get better. Miami, it's hard for me to see them replicate what they did last year with Damian Martinez gone, with Cam Ward gone. That defense was a mess. And again, until I see it actually improve and step up and do what it should be doing with all the talent that defense has, I'm not going to say anything about Miami in terms of having a dominant defense. So that puts them at 2-2. The Miami fans will be happy when they hear me talk about the rest of the schedule. After the Florida game, they have a bye week, a much-deserved bye week, having to play Notre Dame and Florida in the same month. That is brutal. They go on the road to take on Florida State. Florida State was a bad team last year, and you guys still struggled with them until late in the fourth quarter where you guys just managed to pull away. Cam Ward was throwing down his little iPad thing or whatever it was at the game at some point. He was frustrated. This will be a tough game, coming off a loss to Florida. With a bad taste in your mouth, you're not going to be the state champ anymore, but you're not going to be underneath Florida State either. I have Miami winning this game. I do believe that Florida State's going to be a lot better than what they were a year ago with Castellanos at quarterback, with all the new coaching hires that they got. I really liked it, by the way. And now I do see a scenario where Miami kind of has a bad effect from that Florida game. If they lose, they go into Tallahassee and they just don't feel good, because normally when Miami loses a game, a lot more losses follow. And even despite winning 10 games last year, they finished 10-3. They lost to Georgia Tech. It did beat somebody. Then they lost their last 2 games to finish the season. So it has been a problem for Miami. So I could see Miami losing to Florida State. And even though they beat Florida State pretty good last year, the last 3 years before that, Florida State has beaten them. So I would not be surprised if Florida State were to beat Miami. But I got to give the edge to Miami here. Miami owns Florida State all time, even though it's been a competitive rivalry lately. Louisville at home and Stanford at home, two big wins. I don't see anything that Louisville can do that where they beat Miami or Stanford either. At SMU, let me talk about this game last. Syracuse, NC State. Syracuse, I'm going to talk about that in SMU last. NC State, that should be a big win. And NC State has not been very good lately. You're at Virginia Tech, and then you're at Pitt. Two potential trap games. I can definitely see Pitt doing it. Last time Miami was in the top 10, they were actually undefeated. They were 11-0. If you look back at 2017, they were headed to the ACC championship undefeated, but they ended up going with a loss to a 4-win Pitt team. Check it out. It's true. But I think they get the win at Pittsburgh. At Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech hasn't really impressed me very much. I think they beat them too. I want to talk about Syracuse and SMU for a second. Syracuse has Honda McCord, Kyle McCord from Ohio State, a guy that we beat. Now, granted, he's a really good quarterback, and no, he did not cost his team the game against us. His team around him could have played a little bit better. Okay, he's a great quarterback. I like watching him play. I think, given that Miami's at home, and Coach has to have this game circled, I think Miami, and again, while I don't think that defense is going to be elite or anything, I do think it's more than enough to get some stops, to make some big plays against Syracuse, because Syracuse was not undefeated last year. They were a good team, but not undefeated. They were not undefeated for a reason. Their defense gave up too many points in some of those games, and they lost to Stanford. So I think Miami gets payback in this game in a really big victory. At SMU, this is going to be a tough game because it can be hard to play over there. SMU's coming off making the ACC championship a year ago, and they had a really good year. They finished 11-3, I believe. They lost to Clemson in the ACC championship. Then they went on to the playoff anyway and lost at Penn State. And Penn State's got a really good football team, by the way. But, yeah, there you have it. I have Miami going 10-2 with losses to Notre Dame and Florida. Florida and Notre Dame, who I think will be easily playoff caliber teams, especially Notre Dame. Notre Dame's schedule's rough, but Florida's, my goodness, terrible schedule. Terrible. But Florida's a good team. I think they'll be a good team. Miami's going to be a good team too. Florida might make the ACC championship. Actually, they would make the ACC championship. Those two losses have nothing to do with their conference. So if they were to lose those two, but then still make it to the ACC title game and win it, they would still go to the playoff. Miami, I think, has what it takes to do something special, but it's just hard for me to see. You know, they always self-destruct at some point when they lose that one game, and then they continue losing games. That's kind of been something that no coach has been able to fix. Not Mark Richt, not Manny Diaz, not even Crystal Ball, despite having Cam Ward. So, it's possible, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I got to give Miami a chance to go 10-2. At worst, 8-4. I could easily see them losing that game to Florida State because Florida State has beaten them 3 of the last 4 games. And in 21, when they beat them that year, Florida State was not even a bowl-eligible team. They still beat Miami at home. You know, I could see them losing to Syracuse again. It's very possible. You know that defense doesn't really work out. I could see I could see Miami very well going 11-1. I don't think they're beating Notre Dame. They could beat Florida again. I mean, it would be a closer game. They have a home field advantage. Anything's possible, but I got the Canes going 10-2.